This is PTV World. I am SYED SHABAHAT and you are watching Fault Lines. France is facing one of the most severe protests in its recent history. Though there is a bit of political turbulence in France since January 2023, but during last 10 years, these protests have actually got a momentum that was not expected. Initially, what has triggered this crisis is a bill that has been passed by President Macron, wherein the age of retirement has been increased from 62 years to 64 years. And the protesters are protesting against the government and are demanding for this bill to be reversed. To add into the crisis, French Parliament has not been taken in the loop. Rather, the president has taken a decision through his own cabinet, a provision that is provided to him under Article 49.3 of the French Constitution. But is that an isolated event, or is it a part of the bigger geopolitical game that France is unfortunately in the catch of? And that is that the support that France has provided to the war on Ukraine has perhaps put enormous pressure on French economy. Team Fault Lines have prepared a package. Watch the package before I bring my first guest to the program.
French President Emmanuel Macron's changes to France's retirement system triggered a firestorm of nationwide protests in France, which paralyzed the country, halted services. Concerns that violence could mar the demonstrations prompted an unprecedented deployment of 13,000 officers, nearly half of them concentrated in the French capital. Despite fresh union pleas that the government pause its hotly contested push to raise France's legal retirement age from 62 to 64, French president didn't roll back changes. French government pressed on with a hugely unpopular bill without a vote last week after two failed no-confidence votes cleared the way for the pension reforms. It says that relying on the working population to pay for a growing age group of retirees is no longer fit for purpose. Protesters turned more violent since Emmanuel Macron pushed the legislation through the French National Assembly using a constitutional clause that allows the government to bypass a vote. Hundreds of thousands of people took part in marches against Emmanuel Macron's use of constitutional executive powers. Nearly 2 weeks after the government pushed the new pensions law, unions have vowed to continue mass protests to get the government to back down. French president has refused to abandon the increase in the pension age, which was a central part of his manifesto before he was elected to a second term last year.
Ladies and gentlemen, the first guest joining me in this part of my program is Dr. Mubashir Hassan, who's joining me from Paris. Dr. Mubashir is an academic expert, also an analyst based in Paris. Dr. Mubashir, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much, Shabbat, for having me on your show, Fault Lines.
Dr. Mubashir, what exactly is background of this crisis? Because there are two schools of thought, as I was telling in my introduction of the program. What exactly has triggered the crisis?
Well, this issue is not a very new issue. It has been erupted for like last 1.5 years. But what are you seeing in the news right now? This has been erupted for like last 3 or 4 weeks, I should say. The issue raised when the government raised the retirement age for the people, for the common people. It was like 62 years before, and now it has been changed to 64 years. So the people, they are not happy, and they are using their democratic right to protest against the government decisions, against the policy. So this is one of the protests, and the French people, they are very famous for their protests. So it's one of the protests that has turned into the wildest protest recently.
And why the government has been so adamant to its decision? Why is it locked with this decision? Because with such heavy number of people protesting, the government should have ideally been thinking for a revision of this bill.
Well, the reason behind this increasing of the retirement age, there are multiple reasons. One of the reasons is this, that expected life rate here in France has been increased to 90 years old. So the government had to pay the retirement benefits to the people, the common people, till the age of 90 on average. So it was economic pressure on the government that has been building up since last many years. This was one of the reasons they increased the retirement age. And the second, there were many organizations who were getting benefits of the retirements. The government revised their rules, the benefits, and they changed according to the new rules to the lesser benefits, which made them very furious.
Dr. Mubashir, what is the political narrative of President Macron? What is forcing him to enforce this bill? And would you agree with me if I say that this bill has further added into the existing unpopularity or the tide of unpopularity that President Macron was facing?
Yes, was one of the reasons because Mr. Macron he invoked an Article 49.3. This is an article in the Constitution of the Fifth Republic that the president can decide anything which he deems fit for the country. So instead of going for a public vote or public referendum or going to the parliament, he used his constitutional powers. Obviously, he has the powers to invoke this article of the Constitution, 49.3, and he did all by himself. So for the people, even for the politicians in the government, he has bypassed the government. He has bypassed the parliament. So this is one of the reason behind all these protests, that he has taken a very unpopular decision by doing this.
And Dr. Mubashir, to add into it, are there some other decisions that have perhaps added more fuel to the fire, or is it only this decision that is causing so many problems for the president?
There are multiple reasons. One reason behind all these protests is this increased inflation rate in the country. As we all know that inflation has been increased dramatically all over the world. And the inflation rate in the country that's announced by the government, the official inflation rate is like 10%. But in reality, the common people, they are facing much more than that. Like they are facing like more than 70% price hike in the public communities. And there's a price hike for the common usable goods. There's a price hike in every food communities. So the people, they have gathered this anger not only for this constitutional use, but there's a lot of anger that has been accumulating for the various reasons. So this is one of them. And the second, the French history is full of protests, and they are very proud to have the protest, because if we talk about the French Revolution, it started with a protest as well. So the French people, they take pride to have their rights and to exercise their rights. So they, every time they go into the rights or they do some sort of protest, they relate to the French Revolution, that we are going to have the similar type of revolution in the country. Similarly here, this was started like 3 years back with the Yellow Jackets. It was one of the biggest campaign against the government. It was one of the similar thing that they started with the Yellow Jackets. In French, we say Gilets jaunes, and this was the same approach that 3 years back they increased the retirement age, which has been re-revised again. By the way, this time the anger is not only in the common people, the anger is in the politicians, the anger is in the parliamentarians, anger is among all the walks of the life, I should say this. Because for them, President Macron, he did not follow the right path. Obviously, he was using his powers that has been allotted by the Constitution, but there's a parliament, there's a system of referendum. So the people, they think that he should have gone through the referendum, or he should have gone through at least the parliament vote, that if they are increasing the retirement age from 62 to 64, he should not have invoked 49.3, the article 49.3. This article which allows him to take some decisions. People say that this article was there to use in case of emergencies, when there is no parliament sessions going on, or when there's some act of war, when you cannot have the parliament sessions. So the president can use the special powers. But for this, he used a very unpopular way to get it through.
Dr. Mubashir, you have pointed out that there is 70% price hike that France is facing at the moment. Now, that's quite a glaring situation. Tell us more about the economic turmoil that France is facing at the moment and how severe this problem is.
If we talk about the economic challenges, this is not only the France who's facing the economic challenges. This economic challenge has been faced by the whole Europe, I should say. Rather, the whole world is going through a very tough time for the moment. So France is one of the country that's been suffering from many economic challenges. And if we talk about the jobless rate in France, that has been increased. If we talk about the inflation rate, that has been increased. If we talk about the exports of the France, they are not as much as they used to be. And the similar thing, there have been a lot of pressure because of the Russian-Ukraine war as well. So there are multiple factors, and because of all these factors, there were no confidence motions against the prime minister as well. So this is not only one issue, but this is a complex of multiple issues that have been accumulated, and this has resulted in this.
Dr. Mubashir, has the stance that France has taken on the war of Ukraine got anything to do with this existing crisis? Do you believe the people of France are also not happy because of the cost of war that France has paid for perhaps no immediate reasons?
Yes, I do agree with you. I do agree with you, because this has taken a shift from first France was thinking and Germany was thinking that they should not be the part of this war, because they could foresee what going to happen, and they could foresee that what cost they have to pay. But under natural American pressure, under global pressure, they had to take a side. And normally they are taking this, they are part of NATO as well. So they have to take against Russian stand. And now when they are part of this Ukraine-Russia war, one hand, they have to pay the military cost as their contribution to the NATO, and they're paying for the arms and for all the things which they have to pay for the war. At the same time, this is increasing the anger in public, that why the French taxpayers' money has to go to the NATO's war, because they don't want to be part of any war. And the second time, on the other hand, they have to bear the cost of the energy crisis, because once the war is going on, the Russian and the Ukrainian gas, which was the main source of supply to the energy source of Germany and France, that has been cut off. So they have to bear that loss as well, because they are not getting that cheaper gas that was coming from the Eastern Europe and Russia. So this was one of the reasons that has increased the inflation all over the country. And the second, we were recovering from COVID. because during the COVID period there was a big loss of business, and the government had to pay a lot of pensions and a lot of subsidies to the businesses, to the companies, and to the people. So the government was under double pressure of economy from the COVID side and from this energy side as well. So that's why they had to balance the payments, and they have to increase the prices, the fuel prices. Just to tell you that we have been paying like more than €2 for a liter of diesel. That's almost 400 Pakistani rupees per liter. So this price is the highest price the French people they have paid. This is not normal. So once we know that the fuel prices are increased, all the prices for all the commodities they are increased. So this is one of the reasons that the people they are in anger, that they are protesting on the streets.
And Doctor, what can be the possible outcome or the possible effect of these protests that are running in France? What can be its possible spillover effect on the neighboring nations?
Shab, I do agree with you. This is not only the French problem, this is the global, or I should say the European problem. All the European nations who are contributing to this war, they have to pay the price. Means the rich countries, I should say, France, Germany, UK, or Norwegian countries as well. They are participating, and they are paying the price for the war. As a result, the fuel prices in their countries has been increased, the inflation rate has been increased, and it has increased the anger in public, because common people they are facing inflation, they are facing a price hike in everything, and they are losing their jobs. So this is a chain reaction of multiple reasons, and it is not only the French problem, but it is like I should say a European problem that all the European nations they are facing the worst economic inflation rate.
Lastly, Dr. Mubashir, do you believe this problem is going to persist further, or do you see an end in the line of sight?
Just to share with you, this we don't see any end of it, because the government is facing a huge pressure, an economic pressure from multiple reasons. They are obliged, because they are not even happy to increase the fuel prices. They are not happy to increase the inflation rate, and they are not happy to see the increased jobless rate. They have engaged into the war. They have engaged into certain commitments which they should not have done, but now they are into it. So there is no end to it now, and they have to pay prices for everything. At the similar time, their labor unions of French railway or the French people, they are very strong, and the rate of their protest is not coming down. So the French Prime Minister Elizabeth Borne, she has called for the mediation. She has called the leaders of those labor unions to have a meeting with her. It is taking place right now today. We should have some results by tomorrow. But the thing is this, that the government is obliged to take the difficult decisions. At the same time, the people, they are suffering.
Thank you very much, Dr. Mubashir Hassan, for being guest in our program today.
Thank you very much, Shah, for inviting me.
Ladies and gentlemen, you just heard Dr. Mubashir Hassan, and you have an idea now that what exactly has triggered these crises. But since we know very little of this subject, I thought it would be better if we invite another guest from Paris and take his point of view as well about these issues. So I have requested Mr. Yunus Khan. Mr. Yunus Khan is correspondent of DW, permanent correspondent in United Nations, also permanent correspondent for European Union and NATO. Yunus Khan Sahab, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much, Shabahat Ali, for inviting me in your show.
Yunus Khan Sahab, I would want to have your take on what exactly is happening in France, in your worthy opinion. What has actually triggered the crisis?
There are many problems going on in France, but the biggest problem right now, pension reform bill protests are taking place in the country against raising the pension age from 62 to 64. Due to this protest, where the business community is disturbed, the common citizen also worry. Incident of violence and arrest were also reported in the protest. Macron plan has faced resistance from across the political spectrum, including from Marie Le Pen, far-right National Relay Party, and Jean-Luc Mélenchon, far-left La France. New strike and protests from some of France's leading trade union are underway against pension reform bill. The protesters say that they will not back down from their own demands.
And do you think that France's stance on the Ukraine war has got anything to do with the crisis that we have in hand today?
At the beginning of the war, the French President Macron had taken a very strong position regarding Russia, but now with the passage of time, they are trying to keep the option of dialogue open. It is the time when Europe and France are providing all possible support to Ukraine. The French government is trying to find a solution to solve this problem because Europe is suffering the most in this war. Before Russia involved, Ukraine projection estimate global economic growth in 2022 will be around 5%. The war in Ukraine was a massive and historical energy shock to the market, according to the November 2022 report by the OECD.
Yunus Saab, what do you think can be the reason for President Macron to stick to his decision? Why is he not reconsidering his decision despite all these protests, amid all these protests, rather?
The President Macron said that these reforms are very important for the country's future. The government is of the opinion that our economy is already suffering due to Corona and the war in Ukraine. In many other European countries, the pension age is still under the 64 year. The government has asked the protesters to end the protest, keeping in the mind the current economic and political situation. Macron party argue that reform of the pension system is necessary to sustain it long into the future. It has a project annual deficit of 10 billion euro each year between 2022 and 2032, according to the France Pension Advisory Council. However, opinion polls suggest a majority of the public support industrial action to oppose the changes.
And what, in your worthy opinion, is the gravity of situation? Do you think this is a serious crisis that the country is facing, or do you believe this will also pass by like many other things in the past?
When on the one hand, the Corona situation affected the whole world, after that the Ukraine war added to the economic problem. In this situation, the country economic problem will necessarily increase, but political instability in France, protests our pension reform have more increased the country economic problems. Transport is mostly closed due to the protests. Business is affected. Inflation and unemployment are increased. Political instability is increasing, due to which the French people are worried. This situation is not in any other European country. Therefore, France appears to be more affected economically and politically. The war in Ukraine is a massive income shock, increasing the price of gas and oil will reduce the purchase power of French people and rise production costs for business. Another consequence of the war Ukraine will be higher military spending.
Thank you, Yunus Khan Saab, for being guest in our program. Ladies and gentlemen, we'll take a break and we'll join you back with the second segment of the program. Stay with us. Welcome back. Ladies and gentlemen, in the wake of all these problems that planet Earth is facing, climate change is perhaps one of the most serious problems. And climate change is such a vast terminology that when we say climate change, there are many sub issues that by now have started taking more attention from across the world. And one of such auxiliary issues, one of the such sub issues is the global water crisis. Water crisis is such a severe problem in these contemporary times that just last year 43,000 people lost their lives due to water crisis in one country called Somalia. 10% of all international migrations are taking place because of water shortage or water's scarcity. Also, the fact that Pakistan is one of the countries that face one of the most severe deficit of water. Amid all of this, United Nations recently convened a conference dedicated to the subject. It was captioned UN 2023 Water Conference in New York. Secretary General United Nations Antonio Guterres spoke to the occasion, and there was a robust bouquet of participants that participated from not only from different countries but also from various walks of life. Why this problem is so pertinent, what exactly has been discussed there, is it a positive step in direction of better water management or not? To discuss all of this in our program, I have invited Syed Shujaat Ali, who is a hydrologist, water consultant, and a PhD scholar from Peshawar University, has also participated in our program in the past. Shujaat, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much, Shabazz, for having me.
Shujaat, first things first. So, why was this conference so significant? Why has it got major headlines in all the international media outlets?
Shabahat, such conference was organized back in 1977 by the United Nations, and as you know, that this water and sanitation issues and this goal number 6 and of the sustainable development and the climate change has now, I mean, they have forced the gracious forum and the prestigious forum of the United Nations to take a step forward and to organize a dedicated conference on the very subject on such a massive level. So not only the representatives from the different developed and underdeveloped or the developing countries have taken the part in this conference, but also over 10,000 participants around the world, both physically and virtually. They not only participated, but they also presented their ideas that how to overcome this very issue of water and sanitation crisis around the world, which is not only the problem of the developing countries but also the problem of developed countries. Like like if I tell you about the United States, which is the symbol of excellence around the world, even like almost 44 million people in USA, even they are suffering from the inadequate water supply. So it is one of the most prime important subject on which the United Nations once again organized a very massive conference, which took place in this March 2023.
All right, Shujaat, but what exactly has happened there? What makes it such an important conference?
Well, the main aim of this conference was to take the significant steps toward the sustainable development goals, and the sustainable development goal number 6 is dedicatedly regarding the water and service sanitation services. So. As you know, as I mentioned before, that it is becoming a very prime problem, because you know the water and sanitation, it has been taken for granted by the in all parts of the world, and now it has become a vital issue because of the climate change impacts as well. So what really happened in this conference, that the participants from the civil society and the business community and the young leaders, they participated and presented their ideas. And also some developed and underdeveloped or developing countries, they also made some good commitments regarding how to achieve the goal number 6 by 2030, because the way our water scarcity problem is increasing, the way it is acting like a catalyst to enhance the climate change issues, the situation is going to get worse by 2025 and by 2027. So very war footing steps are required. So for that very purpose, the developed countries like US, Japan, and the underdeveloped countries, they have pledged few commitments.
While I appreciate what you have said, can you tell us a bit more specifically about the commitments that make you so excited as an expert?
Shabbat, the commitments made in this event are so extensive that it has never been done before, specifically for the very sector of this water and sanitation. If I tell you, uh, the United States of America has made the commitment of $49 billion investment in the water and sanitation sector, and also to make the climate resilient infrastructure. And the Japan, they have made a commitment of 500 billion yen, which is almost 3.65 billion dollars. Even the African countries, they have made the commitment of almost $30 billion per year by up to the 2030. So such extensive commitments by the developed and underdeveloped or developing countries shows the vital or the importance of this very sector of water and sanitation. And I tell you that it has never ever happened before.
Shujat, you spoke about Africa, and that reminds me that the recent climate summit also took place at Sharm el Sheikh in the heart of Africa. Again, you are telling us that Africa has shown a tremendous response in this conference. So, what exactly Africa has committed in this conference, and why Africa is so active towards these climate change issues and water issue at large?
Specifically talking about the Africa, the Continental African Investment Program, which we call AIP, has made a commitment of just I mentioned that US 30 billion per year by 2030, and they will take the high level initiatives regarding the water and sanitation. Shabbat, this is very important that not only the developed countries but also developing countries are taking this matter so seriously, because this very issue of climate change, this very issue of water scarcity, the depleting groundwaters, the irregular flows in the water streams, this is hunting the all parts of the world. So these commitments show that the very significant importance. If these steps are not taken, and if these pledges which have been promised in this conference have not been made, the world would suffer even more in the coming years, because 2027 or 2030 is not very much far away. So the SDG goal number 6, which is specifically regarding the water and sanitation, it in order to make it functional or workable in its true spirit, I think these pledges would be of very vital importance, because such massive investment in this sector has never been made before.
Let's zoom out of Africa and talk about some other areas. So, what Shujat can be the consequences of water crisis, or the dire situation of water crisis would be in far fallen islands like Australia, or perhaps more populated areas like Central Asia? Is it a problem only concentrated in Africa, or is it a global issue at large?
If I talk about the Central Asia. In Central Asia, there are two major water bodies. One is Amu Darya, and one is Ser Darya, and they both are performing a key role in the agriculture yields, in the industrial development, in providing the drinking water to the Kazakhstan, Uzbekistan, Turkmenistan, Kyrgyzstan, and Tajikistan. So the very problem of this climate change has greatly affected the river flows in these two major water bodies, and it has become a point of concern because it has also enhanced or affected the relation between the countries, because you know the river has no boundaries. It emerges from one place, and it discharges at the another place. And if the flows are affected, the relation between the countries are affected. So this change in the river flows or discharge patterns have started affecting the relation between the countries. So, and also it is affecting the agricultural yields, it is affecting the drinking water supply, it is affecting the industrial yields. So yeah, it is affecting the Central Asia. As long as Australia is concerned, the drought is causing a very big problem for different parts in Australia. They are trying to overcome this issue by applying the water conservation techniques, and by doing the rainwater harvesting and all that. But still, they are struggling. Like even a very developed country like Australia, even they are struggling, and they are trying to uh, come up with something new in this sector in order to conserve and in order to preserve the water for them and for their coming generations.
Shujat, why don't you tell us about South Asia? Because this uh, is one of the areas where we see conflicts coming out of military armed conflicts coming out of the water crisis. Recently, Pakistan and India have also faced some problem with regards to the existing contract, the existing Indus Water Treaty that both the countries have. So tell us about the water scarcity situation of South Asia at large.
Shabat, I think the topic of regarding South Asia is very extensive, and I might be needing a separate show with you in order to discuss specifically the water issues in the South Asia. But to like if I just specify Pakistan regarding the issue, so the drought conditions are becoming very much significant in all the major metropolitans of Pakistan. Like if you see Karachi, if you see Lahore, Islamabad, Rawalpindi, Peshawar, all the major cities are facing the water issues, and the groundwater is depleting at a very fast rate, because there is no or there is very limited supply for the drinking water from the surface sources, and mostly these cities were relying upon the groundwater source. And because of the change in the rainfall patterns, because of the massive urbanization, because of creating the impervious layer between the soil and the rain, the groundwater has started depleting, and it is becoming a very major issue in Pakistan. So talking about India and I think that would take the discussion too long. So I will do a separate show with you in this regard.
Very well, Shujat, but is water scarcity your only concern when you talk about Pakistan's water management?
Not really, Shabat. The climate change has started affecting our water bodies, and this recent flooding in 2010 and 2022 were the example of the drastic climate change effects. You have seen our water bodies behaving very differently. Like it was more like this flooding condition was more like a catastrophe. These high intensity floods were not expected. They cannot be predicted. Like being a hydrologist, even I was not even sure that after 2010 floods there would be another such massive flooding event in our water bodies. So this issue of climate change, it is not only related to the water scarcity, but it is also about the change of the rainfall intensity patterns and the flooding and the urban flooding. Like if you just have a look at the facts and figures, you will see that in one part of Pakistan, our water bodies were they were flowing like anything. They were their discharges were almost 40 to 50% more than what their discharges were in 2010 flood. And in some part of the countries, like in River Jhelum, they were in the same duration, the flows were not even enough to fill the Mangla Dam. So by climate change, uh, it's not about the increase in the rainfall. It is also about the decrease in the rainfall, and that's what Pakistan is experiencing, and it is the very much point of concern uh, for the country.
Thank you very much, Sayyid Shujaat Ali, for being guest in our program.
Thank you very much, Abad.
Ladies and gentlemen, this was Sayyid Shujaat Ali, water expert, and who was telling us about the dire situation that planet Earth is facing at large. You just noticed during the course of our conversation that the problem starts from Australia, goes to Central Asia, goes to South Asia, Africa, and even the concerns and stakes are very high in the United States. That is North America. In some part of South America is also getting affected because of these crises. Big problems require always big measures, and let us see how we as human beings, as a collection of more than 8 billion people, respond to such crises. We'll join you next week with another program. And until then, Allah Hafiz.